Just mining for resources. Put this guy right over here, and we should be good to go. Let's see, what should I be doing now? Oh no. No, it can't be! Matt Pat Rush! Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory of Zerg. When it comes to video game species, they get a bad rap. They're the most memeable alien race in video game history, so much so that there's a special Google search when you type in Zerg Rush. But anyone who's played Starcraft knows that the Zerg are by far the least sexy aliens in the galaxy. When you compare them to the other races like the Protoss, super techie, ultra powerful, or even the Terrans, the scrappy humans just trying to make their way in the Wild West of outer space, the Zerg are just like these weird insectoids. And we're not talking a bunch of Jiminy Crickets up in space. These guys are like that huge spider that crawls out of the drain while you're trying to brush your teeth in the morning. Ugh, seriously, has this ever happened to you? It is terrifying. Just turn on the water and hope that it washes the spider back down into the depths where it came from. Back, you dread beast, leave my Mentident alone. What makes the Zerg feel particularly alien to us humans, though, is that they don't act as individuals. They're a hive mind. We're used to being unique and special flowers, having our own thoughts and opinions, but in a hive mind, there is no blue hair and emo eyeliner for Zerg adolescents. No elite Zerg driving hybrids in the HOV lane while the rest of us Zerg are stuck in traffic. Everyone is the same. It's like one shared consciousness across everyone in the species. And in a world where we value individuality so much, no wonder we look down on the Zerg. We see the Zerg as a mindless mass of units that act without thinking. But hold on a second. What if I told you that we have more in common with the Zerg than you think? More in common with the Zerg than we do the Protoss, or even the Terrans, who are human! At the end of this episode, you're gonna have a newfound appreciation for the buggiest race in space, or the newfound hopelessness towards the state of humanity. Maybe a little bit of both. To start with, we need to understand the way the Zerg function a little bit better. If it's been a while since you've thrown down with some Starcraft, or you, weren't alive for the first installment back in 1998, first off, stop flaunting your youth in my face. But secondly, let's learn a little bit about these digital insectoids. In Starcraft lore, the Zerg have what's called a purity of essence, which is basically a fancy name for their ability to evolve by eating other species. Nutritious and delicious. They evolve by absorbing a new species, gaining their powers, and becoming stronger. Well, a special ability like that doesn't go unnoticed, and so in the game lore, a super powerful species called the Zelnaga found the Zerg and wanted to use them to enhance their own powers, creating an awesome super race combo of Zerg and the other major species in the game, the Protoss. Unfortunately, before that could happen, the Zerg needed to get to a better evolutionary state. It sounds cool, and it is, but let's face it, who's got time to wait millions of years for the Zerg to get there? Ain't nobody got time for that, especially the Zelnaga. So they gave the Zerg a gift, the Zerg Overmind. Before the Overmind, the Zerg were trying to become more evolved and advanced on their own, but they were doing it as individuals, not really as a group. The Overmind brought evolution to the next level. Evolution evolved by giving the Zerg a hive mind. So what is a hive mind? It's a lot more than just zillions of bugs. A hive mind, or as it's actually called scientifically, swarm intelligence, is where a large group of individuals receive information from a centralized source that ultimately drives their decision making. The rules set by the hive are designed to find the best answers to a problem that the group faces. So when the entire Zerg colony is like, what are we having for dinner? There's no argument that breaks out between the faction who wants to order takeout and the faction who's like, guys, we're on a budget here, we need to eat some of these leftovers. Instead, the Overmind calculates the pros and cons of each decision and provides an answer that makes mathematical sense to benefit the most members of the group. It's like democracy, except it runs on autopilot. No one even knows that they're voting. At its core, the Zerg Overmind is an information filter, taking all the data from each individual and condensing it into what is most relevant to the group, cutting out all the noise and only focusing on what's important. With the hive mind created by the Overmind, the Zerg function together as a unit, don't question their objectives, and go from primitive individuals to single-minded killing machines in a fraction of the time. Now, the most obvious example of how the hive mind works in real life is with large groups of girls going to the bathroom at the same time. Just kidding. It's actually bees. But seriously, why do girls do that? Why would you want to go to the bathroom with other people going to the bathroom at the same time? It's weird. Give me some privacy when I pee. But enough about girls' bathroom habits. Bees. Bees use pheromones. Communal pheromones, or basically bee smells, control almost everything in a hive. Pheromones given off by the queen dictate almost every decision the bees make. The big kahuna of these is the queen mandibular pheromone, or the QMP, that can make all the bees swarm differently, redistribute bee labor, and tell the colony how to react in emergency situations by following the queen's pheromones directives. Some of the queen bee's pheromones can even slow down or speed up how fast different bees grow up in the swarm. It's like if that Glade plug-in your mom put in your room to control the smell of your gym socks also kept you 15 for the next 8 years. She just wasn't ready to let you leave the nest, okay? In a lot of ways, bee pheromones are a pretty good model for our in-game Zerg, where the overmind is making decisions for the swarm about when to produce units, when to build, attack, anything, as long as it's the best bet for the swarm's survival. In bee terms, the queen makes the tough decisions to actually make sure the hive continues to function. Does that make the bees in the hive stupid or mindless? Actually, no. In the bee example, the individual bees still have extremely specific skills, just like specialized Zerg troops. Our forager bees, for instance, have been shown to have awesome individual memory for shapes, colors, and direction, which is why they're great at finding food, remembering which flowers are best, how to find them, everything. It's actually a huge skill set. It's just that the bee knows when they get that signal from the higher-ups, it's time to pack it in his own best interest. He knows his skill set doesn't involve knowing when winter is coming. Only Ed Stark knows that. So he leaves it up to the hive mind to make the decision for him. Tons of organisms work this way, where individuals are really smart, but the hive is smarter. Ants, bacteria, some fish, they all work this way, and we think of them as some of the most resilient organisms on the planet. The overmind in the game acts in the same way, driving Zerg evolution forward and building up the swarm when it makes sense, but not letting the swarm waste their time or disagree because it's not in the best interests of keeping everyone alive. But okay, I hear you say that some little bees are one thing, but the Zerg overmind is different. It's an outside source coming in and taking over the Zerg. To which I say, yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's update our example to something a little closer to home. AI. People have been working on artificial intelligence for a while, but the hip new thing in AI is called swarm robotics, which you can tell is super intense simply by the name. If you think it sounds like something that comes out of, well, a video game, or Big Hero 6, you wouldn't be far off. Scientists are now taking what they know about biological systems, like bees and ants, and putting the same kind of hive mentality into physical robots. The idea behind building swarms of robots is that basically they can act exactly like the Zerg we see in Starcraft. Swarm robotics is all about scale, creating huge numbers of simple robots that can do 2 or 3 basic things and receive information from each other or from an overarching control signal that's operated by a real person. The swarm mentality keeps them all on task doing whatever we want. Instead of a single robot making a couple simple decisions, the group of robots can now make really complex decisions. And this yields a lot of really cool and also a lot of really scary possibilities. We could produce robots to do the jobs that are really dangerous now, like mining deep underground where it's too risky to send people. We could send them into storms where they could give us data. We could send them to Mars where they can make the hard choices just like humans do. You can also use them though, like it's shown in the game. Instead of risking tons of human lives trying to take over a city or sending waves of soldiers out on military expeditions, you could send a swarm of robots. Based on the hive mind interactions, they know when to switch weapons or tactics, when to chase down the enemy, or even when to retreat. The Navy is already running tests on swarm robots who can run up to an enemy ship, completely surround it, then take it down all at once without any humans on board. The technology is real, and it shows real potential, but it's also really terrifying. I mentioned it before here on my Mega Man episode, but there's already a lot of talks about whether it's ethical to use autonomous weapons. Weapons that can kill people without an actual person making the decision. But swarm robotics takes it to a whole new level, because it's not just the power of one weapon acting on its own, it's an entire army making life or death decisions based on the way that they're programmed. If that sounds a lot like the Zerg, then you're right. Kind of. Like our B example, there's one big difference between swarm robotics and the Zerg. In swarm robotics, the overmind, in this case us, the humans, create the robots from scratch. The robots were never sentient. They were never individuals on their own. The Zerg, on the other hand, started off as individuals with their own skills, goals, everything. In short, they were a lot more like us. So that seems to leave our example incomplete once again. But I'd like to propose one more example for you, where instead of us being the overlords creating swarms of robots to do our dirty work, what if we were the mindless swarm? Humans are a more interesting parallel to the Zerg than bees or ants or even killer robot armies, because we actually have more of the same goals than any of our other examples. The primary directive of the Zerg before and after the presence of the Overmind was to become the most evolved race in the galaxy. As a species, they wanted to evolve so they could adapt to any situation, and ultimately anything that happened to them couldn't threaten their existence in the universe. Bees in a hive definitely want to stay alive, but they don't have higher aspirations to become the galaxy's greatest super bees. Over time, evolution happens, but they're not out there trying to learn how to better evolve from ants and birds and whatever. But we are. Humans are the only species in the world who actively sets a goal of evolving. Think about it. The purpose of evolution is to become stronger, to eliminate the things that threaten your survival. Every disease we cure, every tool we build, even the idea that we use bee behavior to help us build our own robotics, it's all about humans trying to evolve more quickly, become more adaptable, become invincible to preserve our survival. If the Zerg are looking to absorb information from everything around them to help them evolve, well then guess what? So are we. We like to go all Judge Judy on them because they're acting based on a hive mind, but we're no different. Consider this. We might not actively recognize that we have a hive mind, but if you actually think about it, we've had it for years. We don't have pheromones to share information, and we might not be programmed to exchange data just by bumping into each other like a million swarming robots, but we do contribute to a hive mind all the time. It's called the internet, and it's the greatest evolutionary tool we've ever had. Instead of us sharing information one by reading books, buying newspapers, or talking to each other, we now share information with everyone all the time at the same time. This video is doing it right now. The internet is literally a web of consciousness. It's the web. And if you think about it, we weren't always a hive mind. In fact, we used to be primitive, isolated, unevolved, a lot like our friends the Zerg early on. But as soon as we started to share information collectively, we started evolving faster. The internet is our hive mind. And as much as we look down on the idea of a collective consciousness, of simple worker bees, of the Zerg, we created our own hive mind for ourselves. We chose it because it gave us the greatest evolutionary advantage. We craved information and the opinions of others. And so we built a system that allows us to have that at our disposal. But I hear one more argument, that we don't have an overmind. We still have our individuality because there's no central power filtering our information and making decisions for us. But there is. Remember what we said the role of the overmind was at the beginning of the episode? An entity that takes all the information from the individual Zerg and aggregates it, distills it down to the best answers, the best decisions, the best information, and decides what makes the most sense for the benefit of the group. The overmind functions based on an algorithm that delivers the best results to the greatest number of Zerg. Does that description remind you of anything? Google, Yahoo, YouTube, Bing, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, all systems that filter out the loads of information to find what is most pertinent to you, to help guide your decision making. Every meme you see, every news article that stays in your headlines, every YouTube video that shows up on your homepage, all of it comes from the overminds we've built to aggregate our global thoughts, ideas, fears, everything, filtering them through the algorithm that best serves the most of us. How many decisions do you make based on aggregated reviews on the internet from thousands of other people who've rated the thing? Everything from what you wear, what you eat, what movies you watch, where you go on vacation. Everything is influenced by our own hive mind, and it's viewed as the best advancement the human race has ever had. So as you get ready to pick up Starcraft Legacy of the Void, take a closer look at the Zerg and see them for what they really are. Not a scary, mindless hive, but a mirror that reflects the same evolutionary choices we make every day. And remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the
Super Amazing End Card Tournament!
where last time you overwhelmingly said that Until Dawn's Wendigo is not getting you hot under the collar. 300% more of you, actually. Well, remember, it's what's on the inside that counts. Since we're talking about the Overmind, this time I want to know, do you think the internet has truly been a good thing for humanity? It seems like an easy yes, right? And yet we hear complaints all the time about people being on their phones all the time, people having shallow interests, people not thinking for themselves. So honestly, what do you think? Is the progress worth it? Click on one to choose and cast your vote. Once you click, you'll be taken to the channel page where I want you to check out the special playlist I created specifically for this episode, dedicated to interesting and scary technological advances covering everything from killer robots to hackers controlling your body. Truly uplifting stuff just in time for the holiday season. And speaking of uplifting things...